What up boys and welcome back to another Strong or Wrong. This is a series on the channel which takes a look at the newest cards in Clash Royale and decides whether they're a strong, healthy and positive addition to the game, or whether they're a hot pile of garbage that Supercell got totally wrong. Just before we get into the Skeleton Dragons today, if you are new around here, then be sure to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with my latest Clash Royale strategies. And a quick shout out to my patrons Demonetized and Jacob Grahalva for their continued support. Thank you, lads. Anyway, this video is probably not going to be as techy as the rest of mine because, well, this is all a Skeleton Dragon tech would actually look like. Place card, do damage, kill troops, good card, yes, very designed, thank you Supercell, super cool. So instead, today we're going to be looking at how this card fits into the meta and what decks should become popular with it. The Skeleton Dragons do 142 damage, which makes the interactions not great. They pretty much have the same interactions as a baby dragon. They one-shot spear goblins and fire spirits, but need 2 shots for goblins, minions and warbreakers. As I said, these interactions make the card feel a lot like the regular old baby dragon. However, because there are 2 Skeleton Dragons, the DPS of this unit becomes much higher than that of a baby dragon. With a combined DPS of 167, they actually surpass units like Mega Minion in terms of damage output. This is pretty crazy for a splash unit, and means that playing these dragons onto a tank will work just as effectively as if you were placing a Mega Minion. This makes them function as a DPS card, and should fill a DPS role when you're building decks with them. Although they do technically do splash damage, I've rarely seen their splash be that effective due to the low splash radius that they have. Using this card against swarms will work, but you must be careful when doing so. And finally, the most important aspect of the card, its HP. These guys die to both poison and fireball. What's that? High DPS and spell vulnerability? I think all I'm hearing is spell bait, which makes them just like a flying machine. This card is great at being an annoyance for your opponent and baiting out their big spell for another unit. Overall, this card feels like a combination of most of the flying units put together. They have interactions like a baby dragon, swarm-like minions, DPS of a mega minion, and spell bait of a flying machine. But we'll go into that more later. As for this card's deck viability, I present to you literally any deck that has ever run Fireball or Poison Bait. Okay, maybe not every deck, but the 5 win conditions I see pairing the best with Skeleton Dragons are Golem, Elixir Golem, Lava Hound, 3 Musketeers, and Royal Hogs. Golem and Elixir Golem usually run Night Witch as their primary supporting unit. With Poison being the best big spell in the game, it's important for these heavy beatdown decks to bait out that Poison spell with other units to allow their Night Witch freedom on the board. If the opponent doesn't spell down the Skeleton Dragons, then they can provide a nice auxiliary support for the tanks. Lava Hound works in a similar way, but instead baits out spells so cards like Barbarians and Flying Machines are free to be played. This is less risk and less reward, but it's still spellbait beatdown that could benefit from the Skeleton Dragons. 3 Musketeers and Royal Hogs are both win conditions that rely on your opponent's spell not countering them, so defensive Skeleton Dragons could be used in this kind of deck to bait out a spell and free up your win condition. Their high DPS really helps out with this a ton, but really they only fit into a lot of decks because they're spellbait, which is sorta sad really. And that brings us on to the design segment of this video. I'm going to start off this portion negatively and gradually make it a little bit more positive, so here's a warning if you're sick of hearing me rant. The Skeleton Dragons are not a groundbreaking design. As I repeated multiple times during this video, they are literally just other air units mashed into one and released as a card. Even the attack animation for them is just a scaled down baby dragon spit, and the audio is just a minion hit sound. The worst part of this card for me is that it promotes even more spell bait, an issue that's plagued Clash Royale ever since log bait and 3 Musketeers became popular. With all of these factors combined, I was left feeling pretty deflated when this card was released. I did a video that discussed potential new cards coming to Clash Royale, and in there I spoke about the Skeleton Dragons potentially being another flying win condition. I was actually excited for that, but instead we got a baby dragon split into 2 pieces that you sort of want to get obliterated by a fireball. However, with all of my complaints out of the way, I actually don't mind the card in-game. It feels sort of fun and interesting to play with. Watching this video, you might see this card as boring and uninteresting, but trust me, go into Clash Royale right now, open up a classic challenge, and you'll see how interesting they actually feel to play. They fill a nice DPS role whilst also being splash and also being spellbait. I don't know, maybe I'm just subconsciously clutching at straws here, but I'm not too bummed out by them anymore. But yeah, boys, that's going to be all for today's video. If you haven't checked out already, I made a super cool archetype triangle theory video last week that I would highly recommend. I essentially discussed how to beat hard counters in a theoretical sense, so I'll leave a link to that on the end screen. And yeah, that's going to be all for my Skeleton Dragon review. Overall, I think the card is a little bit wrong, as I would have liked to have seen something more original, but they're not the worst thing we've ever seen. Anyway, boys, I've been rambling for a bit too long now. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you all for watching, and peace.